Hi guys, I'm Desi and this is Bridging the Realm. Today my guest is the wonderful Evette Rose. She is an author, trauma release practitioner and a personal development teacher. She's best known for her book, Metaphysical Anatomy, Your Body's Talking, Are You Listening? Evette's work strives to support people in their healing journeys by helping them to resolve their past trauma and freeing them to live successful and fulfilling lives. Her work is drawn from her own personal experience, moving from a difficult past into a well-balanced life and career. Evette Rose, thank you so much for joining me. Welcome to Bridging the Realm.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me, and for everyone that's listening in here today. I'm excited.
Yeah, it's amazing to have you. I've known about your work for quite some time, and I've had your book, which I have to say is the biggest book I've ever owned in my library.
It's funny.
But it's just such a fascinating way to look at illnesses and how and really what the root cause of them are. It's just really quite revolutionary in terms of, you know, the way you look at illnesses and the scientific way of approaching it, the alternative way of approaching it. So yeah, and I have to say, every time someone comes to me with an issue, an illness, like a friend, and I'm just like, wait, I'm gonna go and get this book. They're like, right, this is what you have.
I love it. I love it. I love the confidence that you have in the work as well. I'm so happy to hear that. It's perfect. Beautiful. Thank you.
It's true, you know, every time I've had my own kind of any little illness or anything like that, I'll go into the book and I'll be like, oh yeah, that's what I'm feeling. Yes, that makes sense. So it's really interesting how just this whole book came about. So to start off from the very beginning, tell me a little bit about how you came across this work in the first place.
I came across this work because my life was a bit of a mess, like a big mess, like messy mess. And so it also, like, I never even wanted to become an author. I never intended to become a coach. Like, if you told me 11 years ago I'd be doing this, I'd be like, right? Because it just wasn't even in my consciousness at that time. So what happened was, my lifestyle and the way that I, at the time, not consciously realizing it, but the way that I was trying to cope with my life, my trauma, my problems, was so destructive. Because, you know, when something doesn't work for us, like, we're kind of like designed to avoid pain. Like, we're designed to just steer away from it because it's uncomfortable, right? So anything that causes discomfort, we try to avoid it, or we find ways to cope with it or numb it. So my coping mechanisms, like, you know, excessive working, like more than 80 hours a week, I was drinking, I was smoking excessively, I was exercising excessively, I was in bulimic, I went up and down into anorexia, and completely ruined my digestive system as a result as well. And just struggling with what I would call, I don't know if there's an actual word for it, but I call it in MIT, you know, black depression, like just such a dark place where medication wasn't really even helping me, even though I was overdosing myself by going to the different doctors, which was probably part of the problem, but also not realizing at the time that I was just feeding an addictive behavior. And so all these coping mechanisms just caused my body to collapse. And so it collapsed through a complete emotional, psychological breakdown, where one morning I just woke up more than 11 years ago, and I just hit a crossroad. And so when I say crossroad, it was a deep place of suicide. I was just, I can't live like this anymore. But one thing that struck me, and that actually happened while I was lying in bed. And I remember I was lighting my cigarette, I was lying in bed, and I had to get up for work. Normally I would get up 4 o'clock in the morning so that I can just punish and abuse myself in the gym for 2 hours, and then smoke a cigarette and have coffee before that, mind you. Then afterwards have another coffee and another cigarette, and then shower and get ready for work. And I'm lying there, I'm like, I can't do this. I can't do this. I didn't have the physical strength to actually even go get up. I even set up a gym in my house so that I can save time to not travel, so that I can just do it all there as much as I can and as hard as I can. And I remember thinking that, you know, I see people in my life that are happy. There's people every day laughing. There's people that's genuinely radiating happiness. And if they can feel it, then there has to be an aspect of that I can tap into, but I didn't know how. I didn't even know where to begin. But what I did know is that if they can feel that, if they can experience that, then that must be an option for me as well. And I was in such a place of complete desperation, and having been going from extreme Christianity to being the other opposite side of the spectrum, to being an atheist, the personal development work didn't even cross my mind. It didn't even cross my consciousness. Of course, at that point, it was just alcohol. It was alcohol, it was smoking, it was exercising, because that kind of relieved me, but it was temporary. But I got addicted to the temporary relief. So of course the cycle continues, because we keep wanting to go back to that euphoria, that relief, the numbness.
Yeah.
And so what we do is, when we're desperate, we kind of resort to a little bit weird alternative methods, right? So, and that meant I asked Google how to be happy, and I typed that in, and I got this list of personal development events, and I'm like, nah, we're not doing this. No, there's got to be other ways. Is it maybe a different brand of Smirnoff, maybe a different brand of vodka? I mean, like, really? So
was it too far out of your kind of anything you've ever worked with, and it was just like, no, this is too spiritual, this is too weird for me? Yeah.
I'm like, I don't want to do the tree hugging. I just don't, like, that was my concept of it. Like, I just don't want to do this stuff. I don't want to revert to that. And of course the ego, right? And just judgment, just complete inaccurate judgment. Yeah. And so what happened was, I thought, and the more that I Googled how to do this, how to do this, how to do that, it just kept coming up, these events and these books, and it's angels and it's crystals and it's this, is that. I'm like, fine. If there's something out there, okay, all right, I'll try this. I don't have a better answer. I didn't. So I thought, okay, I'm going to give it a shot. And so the more I started poking around in this, and the more I started to play with this, the more I did start to feel changes. And I'm like, wow, this is amazing. This actually works. Whatever guys are out there, I'm like, you guys are awesome. You're really out there. Okay. You know, this was like confirmation for me that something is happening, and that there's an intelligence to my body that I didn't know was there, because I was treating it like it was stupid. It's like, you make me feel pain. All right, I'm going to put stuff into you to shut you up, because that's basically what we're doing. We're shutting up a body that's solely here to support us, to fulfill our purpose. The body doesn't have another purpose. It's here for you. My body was here for me, and I was abusing the crap out of it every single day, because I associated my body with pain. But the body doesn't know how else to tell you that it's in pain, that it's in a place of discomfort, that it's running out of emotional and physical resources to cope with the lifestyle that you've created.
Yeah.
Like, it's gonna make you feel uncomfortable so that you can listen. Because that's when we're in a place of pain, we're called into action. Discomfort is a call to action.
Yeah.
But then I'm sitting there, a call to action to what? I had no awareness that, trauma and all this pain from the child, the sexual abuse, the rape, the destructive relationships with men, the horrific relationship that I had with my dad. I didn't put it all together, because for me, abuse was just normal. I'm like, that's just life. Why should I heal from something that's normal? That's just how it is. Because let's face it, the way that society and life has changed is that abuse is the new normal. And so it didn't even dawn on me that something like that can have such consequences to me and my well-being. Yeah.
So at that point, the two things were just completely unconnected, like emotions and were just completely disconnected, right? You didn't
sleepwalking. Yeah. Just complete numbness. I actually had a lady when I was a little bit younger than 21. And I was sitting and I was working in the office, and my partner and I were working in the same building, and we went out for Friday drinks, and I came back to the office on Monday, and she was also there, and she said, Evette, I really need to speak to you. And I'm like, yeah, come sit down. And we talked, and she said, do you know that you are in an abusive relationship? And I'm sitting there and I'm like, you could have knocked me over with the feather. I'm like, no. What do you mean? Like, and now I'm feeling really uncomfortable. I'm feeling very exposed and vulnerable, and like, what did I miss? What did she see that I didn't see? And so she started to explain it to me and broke down to me certain things and moments that she saw. And she's like, this is not okay. That is not okay. And I'm like, wow. I can't thank her enough, because she was my wake-up call. She was my wake-up call. And this is when I was starting to go through my journey, and I'm glad that I attracted her, because she kind of like just zoned in on the problem that I didn't want to see. I'm sure there's a part of me that knew, but I didn't want to see it, because I wasn't at that point quite ready to put in the work that was needed to change that around, to flip it around. And so, of course, the pain became so much that I had to deal with it eventually at some point. And, you know, and I took the plunge and just started working with all these techniques and things that started really having a beautiful effect on me. And so, long story short, some techniques work for me to a certain extent, but then I kind of like outgrown the purpose of what it needed to serve for me, because every technique is phenomenal. I love how many techniques we have because they serve every audience. And we need that. That's incredibly important. But they kind of served me to a certain extent where I needed to like find something else to fulfill a different type of need that I had. And so I started playing with different techniques and started getting really good results. And I'm like, wow, this is the next step up. But then I was playing with the technique and it triggered me, and I couldn't get out of the traumatized state. It was a complete accident. And I was also working with a practitioner at the time, went to her to help me with it. She's like, okay, well, let's go back into it. And I'm like, what? And we got re-triggered again. And then she got triggered because she had the same trauma as I did. I'm like, great. Two people having a complete meltdown, and she couldn't help me and get me out of it. I'm like, perfect. All right.
You were stuck
now what?
Old feeling of the trauma.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I'm like, all right, let's just cut the cords. Let's just let this end. And I went home and I called a friend, as we do in a crisis. And I said, listen, here's the list. I really need you to read this to me. I need you to just take me through my process. And she did. And the trauma went away completely. Everything stopped. I could feel cycles in my body just completing. It was the most bizarre feeling, but I felt something was really happening. Wow. It really felt like something was kickstarting there for me. And I started using that specific technique on more people and also with myself, and realizing that the more I played with it, the more I realized, number one, we don't have to talk about the trauma. Number two, we don't have to relive the trauma. And also, you don't have to actually remember what it is that happened. That's the cool part about it.
Yeah.
And definitely. And I specifically designed the technique so that we don't have to talk about the trauma. Because what do you do with these people from that audience? Not everyone wants to talk about their pain. Well, that's okay. You can still be helped. And so from there, it just started to grow. And the more people I started to work with, the more I just intuitively, my intuition started to open up. And I started to see how the body is holding different messages and different aspects in the body. And it's consistent for everyone else in the world sharing certain elements. I'm like, wow, that is so amazing. So
that's mind-blowing. So let me just ask a question. So by that point, you had already done a lot of techniques, and you had come up with your own technique that basically takes you through what allows you to release the emotional trauma that was holding you back. So you got your friend.
Right.
First of all, I think that's incredible that you even managed to ask your friend, because most people wouldn't even ask for help, right? So I think that's such a key part in anyone who wants to do healing and anyone who wants to kind of go through that process. So that's pretty big.
I think for me, that's true. However, I was also in a place, I think sometimes, and I think that's what happened as well when I Googled how to be happy, right? You kind of suck up the ego and realize that you're in such a place where you feel so unresourceful that trying to deal with it yourself is not even an option. And I think when you're pushed into a corner to such an extent, we if we allow ourselves, we can cave in and ask for support. And it was in that moment where I just had to let go of my ego and let go of my fear of projection and shame and everything else that was projected onto me that I accepted as being part of my truth and reality, and just push that aside. And I did. And I'm very glad that I did that.
Yeah.
That was a very, very big lesson for me. A very important lesson as well.
No, that's very powerful. Yeah.
Yeah. And so based on all these techniques and things that I was playing with, people just asking me so many questions about the body. And I'm like, oh my God, this is so time consuming to explain everything over and over again. Out of frustration, I wrote Metaphysical Anatomy to just have all the information in one place. And it was nice to get all the data out of my head as well and just do like a brain dump.
Yeah.
And that's how the book was born, completely unintended. I didn't want to be an author, and now I have 6 books. You know, it's like having kids. I'm not having another kid again. Now you have 6 kids. It's like it's pretty much what it's like. That's what ended up happening.
No, it's amazing. Well, so tell me about when you first started. When was it when you first started realizing that there are all of these people from all these different countries that you were doing? Because at this point you started doing workshops, right, around different countries, and you were teaching people your method. So when was the first time when you kind of thought, oh wow, so all these people, they have a different issue but the same emotional causes, or vice versa? What was that like in the beginning?
Just seeing the consistency in answers, the consistency in childhood experiences, the consistency in triggers. Someone with a certain ailment in Australia having the exact same as someone, say, in the UK, having the exact same reaction. And I'm like, that's interesting, but why? So they share that, but what about other people that's had similar childhoods to them, but they don't have that ailment? And that's when I realized how, because you are an expression of your ancestry. You have everything that you have, and the buildup of your personality, your coping mechanisms, everything. There's a huge, beautiful expression of your ancestry within that, including mom and dad. And then you're having your own life, and your environment helps you to shape that even more uniquely to suit you. And so I realized that in our ancestry, these predispositions, they actually have the heightened threshold, and meaning that you can be oversensitive or have a certain level of numbness to certain expressions from taking place because of the accumulation of stress, depending on how certain ancestors coped and dealt with this emotional stress. So there's this philosopher that once said, if it doesn't break you, it makes you stronger. Well, that quote should be deleted from history, because that's bullshit. I'm sorry, but it's not true. Only thing that happens if you get stronger, it just means that you've dissociated more from that, and you've become more numb from that. And we associate numbness with strength. It's not strength. You've just learned how to bypass it even more. Now, what's going to happen is that threshold, that's going to collapse at some point, because the body can only cope and deal with stress to a certain extent. Everything in life has its limit, and that includes the body. You're not a superpower Superman or Superwoman. The body has a threshold. It's strong. It can deal with stress, but only to a certain extent. And with our lifestyles, the way that we're living at the moment, we are in a state of constant stress. Now, look what's happening. And I'm going to come full circle with the answer. Look what's happening. We have these stress hormones that's being released because we're in a state of fight or flight. Because the body heard something or saw something or felt something in the environment that's triggering an unconscious memory. Now, here's the thing. That can be an unconscious memory from your life, or it can be an unconscious memory from your ancestry. We don't always know the difference. We think we know what it is if we feel, but if I feel this, and that's probably what happened. Maybe that happened that day when I was that age. Oh, okay, boom, fake memory just was born. So we don't always have conscious recollection, because we don't always consciously remember all our memories. Because the frontal cortex goes offline in a state of distress. It's like it flatlines, like a heartbeat, and boom, flatlines. Everything else in the body is taking in the information, including the unconscious mind. So now that memory is stored and held there. That memory and trauma is held in the atomic nervous system in the body, because we have the reptilian mind that's connected to actual muscles in the body, and that always constantly is reacting and responding, and we're feeling it. And then we're looking around us trying to justify why we feel in this state of distress. Why do I feel like running? There's nothing in my environment validating how I feel, but I feel it. So we try to suppress the stress, drink a wine, drink something, just to calm down, just to numb it a little bit. But that actually makes it worse. And so when you look at this, exactly what I just explained, now you're looking at these patterns being repeated over and over again after generation, after generation, after generation. And here you come, and you might now have an oversensitivity to a certain traumatic event, or certain words expressed with a certain intensity, or a certain specific relationship dynamics. And if the recipe is right and you're in the right state of mind, boom, it can set off emotional memories from an ancestor, and you actually react exactly the same way. But you accept that as your emotions.
You've spoken about before that it took you some time to tell the difference between whether something is really your trauma or your ancestors' trauma. What's the main difference for you that you've noticed?
So absolutely, I'll answer that for you in 1 minute. I just want to bring it full circle, my answer to the last question. So that's the reason. That's the reason why people have sometimes developed an ailment, and they had the exact same childhood as someone, and the other person's like, nah, that's not stressful to me. It really depends on your predispositions and thresholds. And I want to share a very powerful example. I had a client who had a 12-year-old girl coming to me who described and expressed and felt symptoms of a rape victim. But this child was never raped. Nothing ever actually happened to her. Medically as well, she was tested, she was fine. And I'm sitting there and I'm listening to her, and I asked her, listen, when did the symptoms start? And she explained to me, they were playing touch tag, outside on the field, and you know, there was a boy and he tagged her, and he touched her right here about below her shoulder collarbone. But of course, you're 12, your body's developing, you have like, I can remember even that time, like I felt shy, I felt a little bit like, this is awkward, this is weird, I feel a little bit exposed, I feel like people are staring at me, you know, so you're already in that state of feeling vulnerable. And now comes a person of the opposite sex, a male, touches there, and that actually was the day when the rape trauma and the memories and the feelings were activated. And I said to the girl, okay, our session is over. I want your mom to come in and I want you to stay outside. So the mom came in and I said to her, listen, I'm going to be really frank with you because you brought your child here to be helped and I want to see how much I can help you. So to be very direct, because there's a reason why she's expressing all these symptoms and nothing happened to her, because they were thinking that she was crazy, she was making it up. And so I said, and I asked her direct questions, and it came out that the mother was raped, the grandmother was sexually abused, and there was a strong predisposition for sexual abuse in the ancestry.
Wow.
It was the ancestral memories and the mother's memories activated in the child because of the heightened trauma of that, already so heightened that it only took a moment of being touched right above her breast, and a moment where she already felt incredibly vulnerable, you know, unsure and insecure. And that was enough to set off the predisposition of sexual abuse. And so I worked with a mom, and the symptoms stopped in the child. I didn't work with the child. There was no need.
Wow.
We are all genetically connected. The cells are always communicating. Whatever you're doing in your life has a ripple effect into your future generation and clearing the ancestry.
Yeah.
So yeah. Just to wrap up that. So that's a good example of how predispositions can play a role, because there's other girls who might have been hit there. No reaction.
Wouldn't react. Yeah.
Correct.
Wow. Yeah. So is it almost kind of like, because the mother and the grandmother didn't deal with that trauma, that kind of energy of the trauma was passed down onto the child, so it was kind of just waiting there dormant to be activated, basically?
The frustrating part with the DNA lineage is that as soon as there's a trauma in it that's not allowing the DNA lineage to stay healthy and to grow to its fullest expression, it's going to keep coming back into the DNA lineage until it's dealt with, because it's literally trying to push out bad factors that can cause genes to become defective, so it wants it to get out. So, and normally dominant traumas are repeated every third generation. That's why I wanted to speak to the mom, especially on the maternal side, because you were already in your mom when she was in her mom's womb. So you want to go back to that time, and that's why it's so incredibly important to see what was recorded there, because it plays a very big role in your life.
Oh, okay. So you'll be, so basically something that happened to the grandmother would be most likely passed on to the grandchild.
Correct.
Through the mom. Yeah.
Correct.
Oh, wow. That's fascinating. Yeah. So yeah, to go back. Okay. So this is kind of how, so for you, how can you tell if someone was trying to diagnose themselves, for example, whether something is really them or an ancestral? Is there a specific feeling? Is it more stronger when it's your trauma, or does it feel differently?
Here's something that I'm sure that you and everyone listening can relate to. I'm sure you've had that moment where you're like, this is my feeling, but damn it, you know, it just doesn't feel like mine.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like mine, but I feel it. And you just know there's this foreign feeling to it. That's normally what I would call an ancestral memory. And what you can also do is connect to the part in your body where you feel that emotion. And here's the thing about being intuitive. You have to be playful. Because when you are playful, that is when you take all preconceived ideas and a need to control out of the equation, and your intuition actually opens up even more. Because now you're not looking and filtering for specific information. All those filters now break away, which allows more information to come forward. And so being playful and pretending that you're intuitive and pretending that the body that you can hear, you're actually going to hear messages like that very clearly. I promise you that. And so what you want to do in that moment is then ask the body, is this mine? Is this yours? Did we start to feel this in this lifetime? Or am I feeling something from an ancestry? And the body will actually answer you. It might actually even show you a face. And normally it won't even show you your face. And you're like, wow, okay, so that's a female from back then. Or you might see mom or dad's face.
Yeah. Yeah.
The body is very responsive. We just have to learn to listen. And sometimes we're so serious. We always think that, you know, healing work is meant to be traumatic. It must be serious. It must be painful. Otherwise it didn't work. Well, wow. Well, how's that for setting yourself up for a rough ride, right?
Yeah.
So
Totally.
exactly, because your intention determines the outcome. If your intention is now to go in this and it's going to be hard, I'm not going to see anything, you know, it's my intuition is closed, well, yeah, you're going to be met by that. But if you can be playful and just allow things to roll and be flexible with it, you'll be amazed at how the body cooperates, and you'll be amazed at how this intelligence that's within you can now finally start to peek its head out.
Yes, totally. No, I completely agree. I think the more you're kind of like, oh no, this doesn't exist, psychicness doesn't exist, or I can't speak to my body, how can I possibly do that?
Exactly.
You're kind of blocking off this energy. But if you're just allowing yourself to just go along with it, then yeah, it totally, I guess you just get glimpses of information and yeah, you put it together.
And that is why children are so intuitive, because they're playful. They don't have all these preconceived ideas and rigidity trying to see things. They're open as a book. But then they lose that because of beliefs and projections and things having to be a certain way. And it cuts them off from that beautiful, free-flowing, intuitive cycles that were coming in and out of their consciousness. So that's another good example. Why to be playful?
Yeah. And then unfortunately society knocks that out of them to get them
Completely.
into the logical, rational way of thinking. Yeah.
And unconscious parenting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell me about the importance of feeling safe, and how a lot of us actually, for the majority of the time, don't even realize that we don't feel safe at all. Like we're constantly repeating the traumas over and over in our head, and there's this feeling of kind of like, because when I was reading some of your stuff, and and obviously you're thinking about your own experiences of your own life, and I was kind of like, yeah, that makes sense, because there's always this thing of so my mom was like always quite she wanted things done in a specific way. She was quite, you know, that was her way of kind of control and everything, which was fine. She just wanted things in a specific way. But I never realized that there's always this small part of me that's kind of like, I always feel like whenever I'm doing something, someone's going to come up to me and say, oh no, you're doing it wrong, you know, you're doing it. So when I was reading, I was like, oh God, that's why I feel like that. So it makes so much sense. And you're kind of like, not that I feel scared or anything, but there's this, I guess I've just had this constant in the back of my mind, like, I'm doing it wrong. You know, someone's going to tell me I'm doing it wrong. So yeah, tell me a bit about that.
So here's the thing, I'll use you as an example. So your intention to start something sets emotions in place. It brings up the passion, it brings up the desire to do that. And now with that desire, with that passion, with that willingness to do something, the emotional stress that this passion and this drive to do something was met by your mom's resistance. It was met by mom's control issues. And now when that's repeated over time, your body starts to associate this feeling of passion and drive with being held back. So every time when you tap into that passion, when you tap into that drive, the body is already bringing forward the feeling of feeling held back. So now you have these two coming like this, and you have to consciously fight through it because you know it's in the passion, you know it's not real. It's like, it's not real anymore. I can do this. I really want to do this. Damn it, shut up! That voice in the back of in your mind. I can hear you in the dialogue. Like it's exhausting. Because you have to put constant conscious effort into silencing that pattern, silencing that voice. Because your body also reacts as if though it's now being held back. And that's where self-sabotage comes in. We start to procrastinate. We start to revert to anger because we have to fight for what we want, right?
Yeah.
So, and then our boundaries is now connected to anger because it's easier to push the things when we're really pissed off.
Yeah.
All tapping into the adrenals. That's all tapping into the body's resources to feel happy, to feel free, to feel healthy as well. So, and what happens now is you're staying in a state of fight. And in order to stay in that state of fight, we also step into our masculinity. I just talked about this in my women's retreat that I just finished yesterday. When we stay in that state, because as women now we have to fight for everything. But look, we're trying to fight for femininity, but the fighting instinct is keeping you in the masculine.
Yeah.
You're trying to find something by going with a state of mind that's kind of with the same state of mind that you're being suppressed with. It's a hamster in the wheel. It's a hamster in the wheel. So That's just to answer that, for example, that's how that can play out.
Yeah, totally.
It's the associations.
Yeah.
It's the associations.
So I guess the idea will be kind of just to step back and to, ask yourself, where is this really coming from? And then go through one of the processes that you do, for example, and try to figure out what the root cause of that is. Yeah.
You don't have to really figure it out. The technique kind of like reveals that to you, but it's more also about understanding that what you felt there, that's an association that has now been encoded in the brain, which is what I would call neuroplasticity. That's when neural pathways start to grow stronger and stronger, or weaker and weaker. Now, in your case, if you keep repeating that, the neural pathway for it becomes stronger and stronger. That's why it starts to feel harder and harder to release that. And also, you're training now the instinctive responses in the body, which is the autonomic nervous system that's also connected to instinctive responses, which gets fired off in the brain, and then the limbic system where the emotional memories are being held. All these aspects, like a ping pong game. And every time when you now relive this, or when you want to do something, this is the whole sequence that's firing off like that. Instantly, it starts to fire off.
Yeah.
And you feel that tension, and you feel that stress, and the body goes into the fighting state, and now it's getting angry because it's feeling frustrated. But now what's happening is that a person's success can be connected to anger, meaning that you need the anger in order to become successful.
Yeah, because that's your drive, isn't it?
Yeah, but success normally collapses after a while because it's exhausting to stay in that state of anger. It's draining. And then you start to associate success with feeling exhausted. You start to associate it with losing your passion. But you see how the pattern just rolls, and then collapses.
Yeah, totally.
Because the foundation is not sustainable. That was me, by the way. So I just, I can so relate to that. That's why I'm talking about it to such a deep extent. I'm like, that was me.
No, everything you've just said, like, it resonates. And the whole anger thing as well. Like, I have noticed whenever I'm at this kind of level where I reach like anger, and that's when I'm really most productive, because I'm like, yes, I can do this. And, but you're right, it is exhausting, because how long can you really keep this up for?
Because you feel powerful in that state of anger. But the problem is we associate our power with the anger. So we always need the anger to access the power.
Yeah. So you just kind of...
So a peaceful life is boring. It becomes, I feel weak when I'm peaceful, but that's actually the best state. It's been proven that we're more creative when we're actually in a peaceful state, because of the harmony that's between the brain and certain sectors, allowing you to actually be more intuitive and more creative.
Yeah.
That's the frustrating part.
So that's and that's a key thing that you said there with the physical symptoms. So for anyone who's not into any of this work, but the key things that they can take away from is, when you start to get these symptoms of feeling rigid and feeling tension and feeling like angry, then that's how there's something wrong there. There's something that has to be looked into.
Firstly, my advice would be is, look at your environment, acknowledge how you feel. Firstly, don't fight how you feel, because that's the worst thing that you can do, because then it's really going to escalate. Stop making yourself wrong for feeling what you feel. We're human. We're here to feel. We're here to feel. Okay. So be okay with feeling, firstly, and then be okay with what you feel in that moment. And so whatever it is that you're feeling in that moment, just pause, look around you. Look around you. What in my environment is supposed to now validate how I'm feeling right now? Is there actually something to prove me right? Most of the time, the answer is going to be no. If the answer is no, then you know that you're dealing with just an unresolved internal conflict from the past. And see it for what it is. Okay, I'm fighting something that doesn't even exist anymore. Okay, I call my power back from that moment. I call my power back. I'm in the present. I'm in the here and now. And just even saying that it feels empowering. Just having conscious awareness. That's the beauty of the frontal cortex, because that's now the conscious mind taking control over the unconscious mind, because normally it's the unconscious mind that's in control, right? The little amygdala that goes a little bit spastic and upset, that 4-year-old, I feel angry, I don't want to do this, like now I need to do that, and now I'm feeling like this, damn it, what just happened? And then the hippocampus comes in like the parent, like, calm down, everything's okay. And the frontal cortex is like, everyone just shut up, like just relax, would you?
Exactly. And
then taking the reins and saying, you two now just settle down, because we are now going to do what I want to do. You have no say in this. You're from the past. We're not entertaining that right now. We have got to do business. Just to bring some humor into that, because I think healing work and discussions about this is so serious, it's so depressing, almost like it's boring. no one wants to listen to it. We don't want to talk about it. So, you know, and the body does have a sense of humor, and we've just got to see that sometimes. It doesn't feel like it. I understand. I'm not preaching here. But when you just look at the approach that I just explained and the humor that you can bring into that, to not give so much of your power away to something that's being triggered from the past because it feels so real, to not give your power away to that in itself is gold. That's gold. That's powerful.
Yes,
and
totally.
to just laugh a little bit, have some humor.
Yeah, no, it's so important. I totally agree. And I think also the idea that we even have the choice to do that and to opt out of feeling this way and step out of that situation is huge in itself, because I feel like most people don't even realize they can step out of that space. And yeah. Oh, wow. So what are some of the most common things you've noticed in people? Are there kind of, you know, issues that a lot of people seem to be coming up to you with? And does it differ from men to women? Is there a difference?
I think there is a slight difference in terms of how men and women react to, you know, to ailments and what kind of ailment starts, because ultimately ailment starts to kick in when the body is depleted of resources, vitamins, minerals, emotional resources, coping strategies that's become toxic. So, and we all have different predisposed ways of acting and reacting to our environment. So, you know, of course we know that men, you know, they're in their masculinity, which is more connected to like the fighting instinct. And for women, it's more about the femininity and being like the one that nurtures, that takes care of everything, the one that's compassionate. But I think our idea of what a man should be and what a woman should be, that's the part that's most toxic, because people are completely abandoning what comes natural to them to try and fit into these boxes. That's a little bit like it requires you now to twist your shoulder like that, because otherwise you don't fit in. Okay, I'll twist my shoulder, I'll fit in, right? Just to metaphorically, you know, use an example there. That I think it's more trying to fit into these different boxes and concepts of how we should act and behave, that emotionally we adapt to that. And then emotionally we try to live a life that we're biologically not necessarily designed to be in flow with. So for me personally, when I look at that, I see that, you know, on that level, I feel we all experience trauma the same way. But if you want to look at, for example, ailments that involves estrogen or testosterone, then of course we're going to start be looking at, you know, more testosterone in men than in women. But then women can also have more testosterone in them than an actual man does. That can actually happen. So, you know, it really depends also on hormonal challenges that you have and how the body copes with that. So that's a tough question to answer, because from my perspective, ultimately, when you look at it from a more general global perspective, people tend to suffer mostly from the same elements. It's just when you start looking at the hormonal side to it, the body can start to act and react differently because of the coping mechanisms that's set to perhaps deal more with certain ailments than, for example, someone with too much estrogen. Right? So they can handle certain environmental stress factors, whereas someone with high testosterone, for example, can. But then again, over a long period of time, both of them are going to suffer, but in different ways. Does that help?
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. Yeah, thank you for that. From what I've kind of gathered so far, I've noticed a lot of women generally kind of tend to have thyroid problems. And I always kind of associated with, you know, this ancestral, you know, the trauma and the women not being able to speak up. I don't know if that is still the case, but like I know in my own family, like the women down the generations, my mom had it as well, thyroid problems, and I've had it to some extent. So it's kind of like you can see the pattern, and you can see from where we're coming from, because my mom's side is from she's from Turkey. So, you know, in their time back in the days, it was very much like, you know, the woman stays in the house, she cooks, she cleans, she looks after the kids. So it was, I can see a little bit how that's kind of connected to that, to the voice and to not being able to speak out, and I guess which affects the thyroid. Do you see that with the thyroid problems, especially? Anything related to that?
Yes, it does. And it also strongly connects to needing the fight instinct, needing the anger in order to express yourself. And that anger, that wave of anger, the body is not designed to cope with that level of wave coming in And I think what also can happen in that case is, you know, the physical changes in the biology creating the imbalance in the hormones as well. And then you have the thyroid, you know, the butterfly is throbbing because of all the blood flow that's becoming so intense. The blood pressure is increasing. So much is happening with anger. But also what happens is that there is suppressed anger. But this suppressed anger, again, as any threshold, it builds, and then it explodes. But what you'll see with people with thyroid problems is that they normally only communicate how they feel when they're exploding.
Yeah.
And then after the explosion, then there's more verbal fighting because now you're in damage control mode, and now you have to defend yourself, and now have to clean up the mess that's left as a result of the explosion, because it's hard to constructively communicate yourself when you are in that state of anger. It's just a complete outpour of pain. It's an outpour of emotions.
Yeah, totally. I can totally relate to that.
And then it cycles, you know, and then you feel angry because you finally spoke up, and now you feel angry because you weren't received the way that you were trying to be received, and you feel so misunderstood, and you feel completely confused, and everyone's angry with you, and now you're angry at them as well, and it just escalates. And then you keep quiet, you try to keep the peace until you can't keep quiet again. Boom, you explode, and the whole cycle just repeats.
Yeah. Oh wow, you literally just explained my life.
Yeah, but that's thyroid as well. That's thyroid. So I think for anyone listening, what might be fun is have a look at my video called the psychosomatic root causes of anger and how to deal with it. I think that would be extremely helpful for the people who's listening, even for men. Even if you don't, guys, if you don't have thyroid problems, don't worry. This is still good for you. This is for anyone that just has, you know, an unhealthy relationship with anger. And that will really help you to start making some conscious changes there. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, totally. Oh wow, that's so interesting. And then in turn, that also affects your weight issues as well, isn't it? A lot of people who are having weight problems.
The hormones,
Wow.
It has a ripple effect into everything.
Yeah.
But now you have people that might have weight problems as a result of their thyroid, but now they're trying to go work on their weight. No, that's a symptom. What are you doing?
Yeah.
What are you doing? That fat's not trying to protect you. That's a secondary issue. Yeah. That's a secondary problem to the initial problem that started, which is the thyroid problem. Stop working with symptoms. Get in there and start working with the cause of it, which is the thyroid, which is you being suppressed, which is the feminine ancestry or the masculine ancestry being suppressed.
Yeah. I watched this interview with you, and I think it was Wisdom from the North.
Monica,
yeah, and oh my God, that was just so fascinating to watch, because you literally, so she had the problem with her throat, right? And you noticed that there was an ancestor who had gone through a trauma that was to do with being gagged, basically. And that was so fascinating to watch, because it almost felt like her ancestor was there at the time, and she kind of, so you healed the whole kind of line, I guess, by doing that. So tell me about a little bit, because you combine a lot of psychic abilities and, you know, your intuitive side. How has that been, trying to combine this scientific way of looking at it and the psychic stuff and, you know, the intuition? How do you find it, and how do other people find it? Like, if you're talking to a normal practitioner, are they kind of like, oh, I don't do this intuitive stuff, or, you know, because it's quite an unusual one.
You know, I think probably 5-6 years ago, I would get that reaction, but I think collectively we're waking up to such an extent where we're actually allowing ourselves to be open to these possibilities. And it's so beautiful that what I do, there's backups for that. There's actual, you know, points of reference where you can go back to and tap into, say, well, that's why I'm saying that. That's what I've been saying. And now I finally found a scientist who's actually, you know, writing a thesis on it, or someone is finding research on that that's now actually been proven to be correct. That's the beauty of it. And I think the beauty as well is that what normally just shuts people up is when I tell them, listen, I have doctors using my book are in hospitals, my book are in universities as part of their curriculums, even my autobiography is now being used somewhere in Switzerland in a university for psychologists. You know, it's like, you know, and psychiatrists and neuroscientists even coming to my courses. It's like,
yeah,
and that normally ends the conversation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I love the fact that you've based a lot of your work on actual experiences, on your own experience of trying to heal yourself, and then on your experience of helping other people heal themselves. So it's like there is so much backup, like you can't argue with that. It's the patterns. And I love this idea of, seeing the patterns.
You can't argue patterns.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because that's your proof, whether it's comes from a scientific view, from spiritual, it doesn't matter. Like it's fact, like it's happened.
Consistency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So I wanted to ask you about, so let's start with some of the healing processes that you've come up with, and what's kind of the most important thing that someone can remember if they were to do this for themselves.
Meaning, which aspect for themselves? Like,
so for example, they have an issue with, say, their left leg, there's something wrong with their left leg, and what's the kind of process? I guess, I mean, of course they can just go to your YouTube videos, but what's the kind of first thing, that they can think? So for example, left side is to do with the female side. So straight away, that's to do with your feminine side of, the ancestry.
Yeah.
How can you kind of take that down to the root cause, or to the, get deeper and deeper into that?
So firstly, what I have is, when people subscribe to my website, apart from the free stuff that you get, which is a lot, there's actually a cheat sheet. I call it the cheat sheet. So it's a few pages where it tells you the left side, is like feminine, the right side's masculine, the elbows about decision making, the fingers is about this, the toes are about that, the gallbladder, the kidneys, like just dissecting it out there for you. And then having a read and looking at that if you don't feel clear. And you can read that, have a look and see what's the message there. Do I resonate with that? Or just, again, and being playful, imagining like a beautiful white ball of light around your head, which is going to represent like your intention, your consciousness. And then letting that ball of light drop down into the part of your body where you feel the ailment or the emotion that's stuck. And then just being with that, just being still for at least a minute. And then seeing what memory comes up, what message comes up. Like, let it speak, let it say what it needs to say. And I promise you, you're going to get a message. 100% you are going to get a message. And when you have that message, you can go to to a site called www.guidedhealingsession.com. It's free. You can go through an online healing session for 30 minutes that I made that will actually talk you through a really beautiful process to help you with that. Which will take me half an hour to explain. So just to like kind of keep it short, but I'll explain also a quick shortcut as well in 1 minute. So for those of you who's listening, watching, that can tap into that as well, and then go through that. And of course, also I have a level 1 online course. You can do it in the comfort of your own home and learn the level 1 technique, and have 24/7 WhatsApp support support. Wow. And also in my live webinars every second week. I'm also on the WhatsApp support group. I jump in there. And I have live webinars that I host where you can send in questions. I interact with you. We hang out and we record it. So we also send the recording to other people that couldn't make it. So what I would suggest is then, whatever you felt in that moment of when the white light went down to the part of your body, and you feel into the message that's there. And so let's say you feel panic. Okay, well, let's be with that panic. Panic's in the heart, for example, in this case. Be with the panic. And then I love the alpha brainwave state. That brainwave state, we breathe in the mouth, out the nose 10 times, as deep as we can. And on the 10th breath, you're going to hold it as long as you can. You're going to feel dizzy. Allow yourself just to drop with that panic. Drop with the panic into that dizziness. Because what the alpha brainwave state does is, firstly, we release DMT, which is a natural hallucinating drug, and also helps you to connect to the deeper messages. What also happens is that you go into what's called the highest brainwave state, which is the gamma brainwave state. And at the same time, as you're with that panic starts to dissolve in the brainwave state, in the messages between the neural pathways. You can start dissolving that. And it also, another beautiful ripple effect of that is that it resets the autonomic nervous system, which is where we hold the fight or flight instinct, which is normally always like, always held in place, like always just stuck. And it helps it to get to move a little bit, to breathe a little bit, and you will feel instantly much, much better. So there's a short answer, and then I also have the short-ish answer to go to the guidedhealingsession.com, and then another answer, level 1 online course, and then of course you can come to the level 2 live event.
Oh wow, amazing.
So you can become a practitioner if you want to. It's completely optional, or you can just become your own best practitioner.
Oh, amazing. What are the type of people that come to your that do this? Is it, do they range from like the medical field to the just completely people who just have nothing to do with that, but just want to learn about their own healing and how they can do it? Is that roughly the range?
I have all walks of life. All walks of life. I have people that came just out of high school that has never done a course, and they come and they had a great time, and they sometimes become my best practitioners because they're so open-minded. They don't have these boxed ideas of what certain things should be.
Yeah.
So they actually find what their own opinion is instead of trying to following someone else's. And then, you know, based on my teachings, they take from what they want and learn and create what they want to create from that and become their own practitioner, or they become an MAT practitioner.
Yeah.
It's completely up to them. I have people that, you know, it's just going through a really rough time in their life and they're just looking for an answer and a way to support themselves. I have them coming. I have psychologists coming. I have sometimes doctors coming. I have anyone coming that's just in a place of stuckness, you know, whether it's because they're stuck or whether they feel stuck in helping their clients and they're looking for a new tool to add to the toolbox. MAT is perfect for that.
Yeah, no, it's wow, it's such a fascinating.
Any prior knowledge, no prior knowledge.
Wow, that's that's amazing. And no, yeah, definitely. I actually, it's on my list of things to do to complete the course that you're doing, because it's so interesting, and I've watched so many of your videos. And you just,
like it.
you just see people's faces, and you can see the difference literally in their face, in the expression, in the way they are. It's like something just dropped off, you know, this weight.
Something happened, yeah.
Wow, it's so yeah, and just from my own experience, because I've had, you know, from people being ill in my own family and things, and I can it's just such a problem, isn't it, nowadays, because there's people that are, you know, kind of like, no, it has to be done in this scientific way. I have to get the pill, I have to get the treatment. And you just see them doing that over and over again, but it's nothing's changing. Nothing's really, like, the same cycle keeps repeating over and over again. And then they finally see an alternative person, or like a, you know, something to do with more connecting with the emotional stuff. And then something just like clicks and it opens up in them, and you're like, wow, that's all I had to do. That's all I had to kind of look into. Yeah.
So many people are resistant coming to alternative practices. And I'm like, guys, alternative practice is no different to going to a doctor or a dentist. Exactly. It's just someone that's become an expert in something that they're passionate about, and they can help you in a certain area. Yeah. I mean, people are like, what about my religion? I'm like, it doesn't matter. It just doesn't, it doesn't challenge a religion. It doesn't challenge it at all. Put MAT and healing modalities into the same box. Yeah. It's just another tool to tap into if you're in a place where you feel very unresourceful.
Yeah, totally. Wow, Evette, thank you so much. I do want to ask you one final question. What advice would you give to your 20-year-old self?
What advice could I give to my 20-year-old self? At that point, I would definitely say, I think what would stand out for me mostly is to stop working for people's approval. Because I think the energy that I would have had and so much more happiness that I would have had, I think my life would have been very, very different. Yeah, just tap into your power right there, sister. Like, go 20-year-old. That's what I would have said.
Totally. Yeah, I think so many people listening could relate to that as well. Definitely. Yeah. To think about. And so your website, people can find you on Metaphysical Anatomy.
Yes.
.com. And you also have a Facebook page where they can find you, Evetter Rose, Metaphysical Anatomy.
Yes. And Finding Your Own Voice, Healing Circles also there, and Instagram.
Yes, perfect. And are you coming, will you be coming to London at any point?
October, end of October, I'm there for the Level 2 live event.
Oh, amazing. Okay, great. Yes. I'll attend that one for sure. Great. Well, thank you so much for this. It's been so wonderful to have you. After all this time of having this book and going through it. Yeah. Are there any last words you want to say to anyone?
Only just keep being the light that you are. Just remember that and keep being that.
Brilliant. Yeah. Great last words. Great. Well, thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. And yeah, I'll be seeing you soon in London.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.